Welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why, and how of newspaper reading. Today, we are going to discuss important issues which has come in the Hindu newspaper dated 29 January 2018. Let's begin. On page number 1, the news reads, Plea to exclude SC/ST creamy layer from quota. This news also appears as a continuation on page number 7. Let's see these two news together. So what is this news all about? In this news, a petition has been filed in the Supreme Court to exclude creamy layer of scheduled caste as well as scheduled tribes from the benefit of reservation. Now it is for the first time that a petition in the Supreme Court has been filed for exclusion of this concept of creamy layer, which so far has been existed for the OBCs or other backward class. In this context, the petitioners has pleaded that the rich and affluent class of the SCs and STs are snatching away the benefits from the deserving and needy candidates among the SCs and STs, and this has led to extreme poverty among certain section of the SCs and STs. This lack of reaching benefits of reservation among the most needy and deserving candidates of SC and STs has not only led to poverty but has also led to social unrest. And this social unrest has also become one of the main grounds for breeding of nationalism in the area. Now let us understand this concept of creamy layer. When did it originate and what has been the criteria of creamy layers over successive years? Let's see. In this regard, in the year 1992, the Supreme Court in the famous judgment of Indra Sawhney declared reservation as valid concept and directed the government to specify basis of inclusion of socially and economically advanced persons belonging to the other backward class. Thus, this formed the criteria on which the government came up with the concept of creamy layer. In this respect, an expert committee headed by Justice Ram Nandan Prasad was constituted in February 1993. The committee submitted its report in March 1993 and its recommendations were accepted by the Ministry of Welfare and was forwarded to the DOPT or Department of Personnel and Training. DOPT subsequently issued an order to exclude creamy layer from benefits of reservation for the first time in September 1993. However, the financial limit to determine creamy layer has been raised over a period of years, taking into consideration various factors such as inflation, salary provided by the government, cost of living, social and economic inclusion, etc. And recently in this regard, the Department of Personnel and Training has raised the income limit to determine creamy layer among OBCs from the current 6 lakh rupees to 8 lakh rupees. So, any persons earning above an annual income of 8 lakh rupees or above shall be included as creamy layer. Let us see what was the financial limit of creamy layer when it was incorporated in the year 1993 and how subsequently it was raised because of these conditions such as inflation, salary, cost of living and social and economic inclusion. Let's see. As you can see, from the year 1993 when the concept of creamy layer was introduced, the financial limit was 1 lakh or those people among the OBCs who were earning an annual income of more than rupees 1 lakh were declared to be coming under the concept of creamy layer. Thus, those people or their children could not utilize the benefit of reservation provided to the OBCs. Now, subsequently, as you can see, this financial limit has been increasing over the period of years. In 2004, this limit was increased to 2.5 lakhs. In 2008 to 4.5 lakh, 2013 to 6 lakhs, and recently the government has increased this limit to rupees 8 lakh per annum. Thus we see this topic becomes very important from our examination point of view, so as to understand this entire concept of creamy layer and also to know that creamy layer applies as of now only among the affluent section of the OBCs, and currently the limit is anyone earning rupees 8 lakh or above. So a question can be asked on this particular issue in prelims as well as in mains. As you can see, a type of question which can be asked in the prelims examination which asks for exclusion of benefits on financial grounds, the government has introduced the concept of creamy layer among which of the following? It's a very simple question and you can directly answer this question after going through this particular video. Similarly, a question in mains with respect to the entire aspect of reservation can be asked with respect to its benefits or advantages as well as disadvantages. So, one of the few questions which can be asked in the mains examinations is, how far do you think the benefits of reservation has benefited citizens of India? And secondly, another question may be asked, time has come to remove benefits of reservation for affluent section among all castes in the country. critically analyze. Since this particular issue has already been in the news for quite a while, thus this entire concept of reservation as well as creamy layer become very important from your UPSC point of view. Let's move on to the next news. Now we come to page number 4. The news reads MPEDA ties up with a Swiss cooperative. Let's see this particular news. Now, as per the news, the Marine Products Export Development Authority or MPEDA under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry has signed an MOU or Memorandum of Understanding with this Swiss organization cooperative to develop export-oriented organic aqua farming in India. This MOU signed between the Swiss organization and MPEDA shall cater to the demand of organic seafood products across EU. This MOU signed between Swiss organization and MPEDA shall increase the demand of organic seafood and seafood products across the European Union. And this MOU was signed at India International Seafood Show of 2018. Before going into the nitty-gritties of the MOU signed by MPEDA, let us understand what is MPEDA and what are its functions and responsibilities. This Marine Product Exports Development Authority or MPEDA was set up as an Act of Parliament in the year 1972. Now the mandate given to the MPEDA was to promote the marine products industry with special reference to exports of such products from India. Thus, MPEDA helps to develop and augment resources required for promoting the exports of all varieties of fishery products such as shrimps, prawns, lobsters, crabs, fish, shellfish or other aquatic animals or plants. Thus, it is the duty of MPEDA to promote exports of these varieties of marine products. In this respect, the MPEDA Act also empowers the authority to regulate exports of marine products and take necessary actions to ensure sustained quality seafood exports from India. And in this respect, the MPEDA can also carry out inspections of marine products and raw materials, fixing standards, specifications and training. And in this respect, the MPEDA is also authorized to carry out inspections of marine products and fixing standards as well as specifications, training for such exports and as well as to market those seafood overseas. Thus, we see a variety of roles and responsibilities of MPEDA which comes under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Thus, any of the questions with respect to MPEDA can be directly asked in your prelims examination or in the mains examination. Question can be asked with respect to the role, responsibility and functions of MPEDA to promote the export of organic farming of seafood as well as seafood products. Now let us understand the specific features of MOU signed between MPEDA and COOP of Switzerland. So this MPEDA along with COOP will identify entrepreneurs and provide them with technical advice on production of high quality organic shrimp. As we remember, it was the duty and responsibility of MPEDA to promote exports of all varieties of fisheries products, and shrimp was one among those fishery products. Thus, MPEDA will identify entrepreneurs and provide them with technical advice so as to improve production of high quality organic shrimps which meets national as well as international protocols. And in this respect, the Swiss organization COOP cooperative has offered to procure processed shrimp across Europe, and that too at a premium of 15% or at a reduction of 15% from the base price. It has been noticed that farmers are hesitant to get into the production of organic farming because of increased cost. It has been noticed that farmers are hesitant to go into the organic aqua farming because of the increased cost of the entire process. And it is in this respect that COOP has offered a premium of 15% and has offered an additional 5% off through financing for developmental activities. This premium of 15% and additional off of 5% will act as an incentive for farmers, and it will help them to explore into the area of organic aqua farming. In this respect, this pilot project will be run in Kerala to produce organic black tiger shrimp. And if successful, this particular project will also be expanded to other areas. Now this project by COOP and MPEDA will improve the supply chain of organic farming in India and will also help in providing employment opportunities to such farmers, as those shrimps or other fishes which they will procure, the MPEDA will help in exporting those fishes or other marine products overseas. Thus, MPEDA as an institution helps in the promotion as well as export of seafoods or seafood products. This news becomes important from UPSC point of view because of MPEDA, its roles, responsibility, functions, which ministries it comes under, and the MOU signed between the Swiss organization, as it will lead to an improved supply chain of organic farming, and it will also incentivize farmers because of the additional off as provided by COOP. Another important thing is that since COOP has various outlets across Europe, thus Indian farmers will be able to sell their shrimps or other seafood products across Europe. This will not only benefit them financially, but it will also help the entire marine industry. Thus, this news becomes very important. Thus, a question can be asked regarding the role of MPEDA. The question reads, what is the role, responsibility and functions of MPEDA? How does it help in promotion and export of marine products to various overseas markets? Now you can answer this particular question with the help of the explanations provided above. And in this, you can also cite the MOU signed with COOP of Switzerland as an example how MPEDA with help of various overseas organizations helps to promote as well as export marine products of India. Thus, this news becomes very important. Now let's move on to the next news. Now we move to page number 5. Here the news reads, Goa speaker visits Mahadayi's origin. In this news, let us understand the entire issue of Mahadayi river. As you can see in this map, Mahadayi river originates in Karnataka and then flows through Goa into the Arabian Sea. As you can see, the river flows only 29 km in Karnataka, but it flows 52 km in Goa. However, 55% of the catchment area of this river is spread across the state of Karnataka, across various districts. Now, the issue is with respect to drought-prone districts of Karnataka. In this respect, these 4 districts, namely Dharwar, Gadag, Bagalkot and Belagavi, are drought-prone, and the state of Karnataka has been demanding share of Mahadayi river for drinking and irrigation purposes. However, this demand of the state of Karnataka has been not met by the state of Goa. So the state of Karnataka plans to build 2 canals across Kalsa and Banduri tributaries of the river Mahadayi so as to complete the needs of water and irrigation of these 4 drought-prone districts. In this respect, Goa has refused to share water of river Mahadayi and says that Goa itself is water deficient and sharing any water of Mahadayi will affect the ecological balance and cause ecological damage to the state. The 2 states, that is Karnataka and Goa, tried to solve the disputes through various means, but nothing could be sorted out. So ultimately, the Mahadayi Water Disputes Tribunal was set up in the year 2010 under Article 262 of the Indian Constitution. Karnataka sought tribunal's approval for its Kalsa Banduri project. However, this demand of the Karnataka government was rejected by the tribunal in 2016. The tribunal is yet to give the final judgment. This is the entire controversy with respect to the Mahadayi river water. Now this topic becomes important from your geography point of view as well as from environment point of view. As you can see, this Mahadayi river travels from Karnataka to Goa. So a simple prelims question can be asked, which are the 2 states associated with Mahadayi river? They can give you options as say Karnataka, Maharashtra, Goa or even Andhra Pradesh. So the correct answer would be Karnataka and Goa. Now another question which arises in this from prelims point of view is that Mahadayi river flows from east to west or west to east. I am sure now you know the answer, that the Mahadayi river flows from east to west and it flows into the Arabian Sea. Thus, this becomes an important topic from UPSC prelims point of view. Now let's move on to the next news. Now we move to page number 8 and here the news reads banking on good faith. Now this article talks about recapitalization process of public sector banks and it also discusses about banking sector reforms. As you know, the government has launched a recapitalization package of rupees 2.11 lakh crore for PSBs, wherein capital will be infused into ailing banks through recapitalization bonds, budgetary resources or budgetary support and capital raised through market. Of the total amount, rupees 1 lakh crore will be pumped into the banks by March 2018. 2018. As we know that the PSBs are not actively undertaking credit creation due to poor balance sheets. Thus, the infusion of capital through this package will help to create credit of around rupees 5 lakh crore, and this will help to boost economic activity through induced investment. In this entire process of infusion of capital, maximum proportion of funding will be raised through recapitalization bonds. Now, what are these recapitalization bonds? Recapitalization bonds are those bonds that are issued on behalf of the government to provide capital to the banks. In this respect, let us understand the term recapitalization. The term recapitalization means providing equity to cover debt or loan of any entity or an institution. Thus, in case of public sector banks, their debts or NPAs will be replaced by equity capital from recapitalization by the government. In this case, money obtained by the government through the sale of bonds will be injected into PSBs as government equity funding. In this case, money obtained by government through sale of bond will be provided to these public sector banks or to these ailing public sector banks as government equity funding. Now, this infusion of capital will help these banks to overcome their debts. Thus, the proceeds from recapitalization bonds will be passed on to the banks that have been identified by RBI under its prompt corrective action. So, let us understand what these prompt corrective actions are and how RBI identify weak banks on the basis of prompt corrective action. Now, to ensure that banks do not go bust, RBI has put in place some trigger points to assess, monitor and control and take corrective actions on the banks that are weak. This entire process of identifying weak banks on certain trigger points is known as prompt corrective action. Let us see what those triggering points are. First, NPAs, that is non-performing assets. Second, low level of capital. And third, low return on assets. Thus, RBI, on the basis of these three parameters, decides whether a particular bank is going weak or if a particular bank is going bust. For example, if a bank high amount of NPA, if a bank has low level of capital, and if a bank is not getting amount of return as which should have been, then in such cases the RBI identifies which require prompt corrective action. So far, RBI has identified 12 banks. In this process, let us also understand another important aspect. Now, after RBI identifying certain banks, suppose if certain banks are PSBs or public sector banks, then in such a case, it becomes the responsibility and duty of the government to recapitalize such banks or such public sector banks. Now, how this infusion of capital through recapitalization process helps bank? Let us see. The infusion of capital through this process will strengthen the balance sheet of the banks. It would also help them to meet various regulatory requirements as mentioned by RBI. It will further ensure citizens' faith in the banking process, that no PSBs will fail and their deposits would be safe with the public sector banks. And for this purpose, the government has recently introduced the FRDI bill or the Financial Resolution and Deposit Insurance Bill 2017. The FRDI bill will strengthen the system by adding a comprehensive resolution regime that will ensure that in rare event of failure of banks, there is a system of quick, orderly and effective resolution. Now, some governance reforms has also been introduced to further strengthen the system. These include close monitoring of big ticket loans, identifying niche area for banks, restricting corporate exposure to banks, and introduction of a new performance management system. Further, the article also suggests that more structural reforms should be introduced in the banking sector. Thus, this news effectively talks about recapitalization of public sector banks and how the recapitalization process will improve the balance sheet of these banks. Thus, from a pre-point of view, questions can be directly asked on recapitalized bonds or recapitalization bonds, prompt corrective action as suggested by RBI, and the objectives of FRDI bill. Thus, I am sure this news analysis on recapitalization will help you in answering certain questions which might appear in the prelims examination. And in the mains, question can be asked about the critical appraisal of existing reforms in the banking sector or to suggest future reforms measure in the banking system. This topic becomes very important in the economy section. Now let's move on to the next news. On the same page, that is page number 8, the news reads, a vote for state funding. Now this article talks about electoral bond, its benefits as well as its deficiencies, and highlights certain key points with respect to the deficiency in electoral bonds, specifically pertaining to anonymity of the person concerned, removing cap of 7.5% of average net profit of companies, and refusal of political party to come within the RTI. So in this respect, let us understand the entire concept of electoral bonds, as recently the government of India notified the scheme of electoral bond to cleanse the system of political funding in the country. Let us understand. So electoral bond would be a bearer instrument in the nature of promissory note. Any citizen of India or any body corporate shall be eligible to purchase these electoral bonds. Electoral bonds would be issued or purchased for any value in multiples of rupees 1000, 10,000, 1 lakh, 10 lakh and rupees 1 crore. The purchaser, that is any citizen of India or any body corporate, shall be allowed to purchase these electoral bonds only on due fulfillment of the KYC norms or know your customer norms. Thus, their bank, their accounts must be KYC compliant. However, the bonds will not carry the name of the payee, or the electoral bonds will effectively conceal the name of the person who will buy these bonds. These electoral bonds shall have a life of only 15 days after buying from a scheduled commercial bank, and thus it can be used only during those 15 days. It can be used for making donation to certain political parties. However, all political parties cannot receive these electoral bonds. Thus, the government has also fixed a criteria for political parties to receive electoral bonds from citizens of India or any corporate entity. The conditions are: the political parties must have been registered under Section 29A of Representation of People Act 1951 and must have secured not less than 1% of the votes polled in either in the last general election of Lok Sabha or in the last election of Legislative Assembly of States. Thus, these are the two criteria which has been fixed by the Election Commission, and in this respect an amendment has also been made in the Representation of People Act 1951. Now these electoral bonds will be available for purchase for a period of 10 days in the months of January, April, July and October as specified by the central government. And in this respect, an additional 30 days will be specified by the central government in the year of general election to the House of the People or Lok Sabha. And these electoral bonds shall be encashed by such political parties only through a designated bank account with an authorized scheduled commercial bank. Thus, this is a step taken by the central government to ensure cashless political funding. However, there are certain drawbacks into this particular scheme which has been talked at length in this particular article, and drawbacks specifically deals with respect to, as mentioned earlier, about the anonymity of the people who are buying these bonds, or no one will be able to know who is giving such money to those political parties. And secondly, removing the cap of 7.5% of average net profits. Now this can be misutilized as various shell companies can be formed for the facilitation of electoral bonds. However, despite the drawbacks, this is a positive step by the government with respect to electoral reforms. A question can be expected in prelims with respect to recent notification of these electoral bonds by the central government. Thus, a question with respect to KYC or criteria of political parties who can receive such bonds can be asked in your prelims examination. With respect to mains examination, a critical analysis can be asked on electoral bonds and how it helps in electoral reform. Thus, this becomes an important topic. Now let's move on to the next news. Now we move to page number 13. Here the news reads, Textile sector seeks a leg up from the government. This news pertains to the issues facing the textile sector and steps which the sector is seeking from the government for its revival. Now this textile sector is facing various issues pertaining to logistics, as the cost and time involved is very high. Other issues which is ailing this particular sector is with respect to labor regulations, and in this issues pertain to regulations of minimum overtime pay. Other issue pertaining to this labor regulations are lack of flexibility in the textile sector. Thus, the government needs to address these particular issues with respect to the textile sector. Another area which the textile sector is reeling under is with respect to tax and tariff policy of the government, as tax and tariff distortions has resulted in India losing its export competitiveness. And in this respect, for the last 3 years, exports have actually stagnated. In spite of the fact that India has low labor cost, because of lack of labor law regulations, countries such as Vietnam has overtaken India in terms of textile export. Another factor which affected the textile sector was demonetization as well as GST. And because of introduction of demonetization as well as GST, the textile sector saw a short-term adverse impact on its trade. Thus, the government should take various steps for the revival of the sector. The steps taken by the government can be in the form of providing of stimulus package for the growth of textile sector, restoring of pre-GST incentives, announcement of drawback rates. And in this respect, the future thrust area should be on power looms, infusion of technology in the sector, and export promotion. The budget of India is due in 2 days. So let's wait and watch what the government of India decides for the promotion of textile sector of Indian economy. This news becomes important from economy point of view, as questions can be asked in mains with respect to suggestions so as to improve the textile sector, or suggestions with respect to improvement of exports of this textile sector. Thus, this news becomes important. Now let's move on to the next news. Now next news appear on page number 14. It talks about the electric vehicles. It says electric vehicles charging infrastructure needs a jolt to meet 2030 target. Let's see this news with respect to the electric vehicles and challenges with respect to introduction of an all-fleet electric vehicles as decided by the government by the year 2030. In this respect, the most important news is about the scheme FAME, or Faster Adoption and Manufacturing of Electric Vehicles in India. Now this scheme was launched in the year 2015 as a part of National Electric Mobility Mission Plan 2020 with the aim to promote use of e-vehicles in India. In this respect, the central government is working on a roadmap to achieve a fleet of all electric vehicles by the year, as mentioned above, 2030. And in this respect, ministries have stepped up their engagement with the electric vehicle industry of India. For example, Energy Efficiency Service Limited, a PSU, has signed an agreement to procure 10,000 e-vehicles and lease them out to be used by the government department. However, there are various concerns with respect to the implementation of FAME scheme. Now this FAME scheme comes under the Ministry of Heavy Industries and Public Enterprises. The objective of the scheme is to provide fiscal and monetary incentives for adoption and market creation of both hybrid and electric technologies for vehicles. The scheme has 4 focus areas, mainly technology development, pilot project, charging infrastructure, and demand creation. Thus, the 4 focus areas of scheme is technology development, pilot project, charging infrastructure, and demand creation. However, the government is facing certain roadblocks to implement this particular FAME scheme. Let's see what are the roadblocks are. Very few global e-vehicle car manufacturers are currently present in India. Thus, this is basically a problem of supply. And because of low supply, the price of the current electric vehicles in India are very high. Secondly, perception problem. People are very skeptical to shift to an all-electric vehicles. Next is the GST rates for both electric and hybrid vehicles are different, leading to a confusion in the market. And last, less availability of charging stations. Thus, as you can see with respect to the roadblocks, it affects all the 4 parameters of the focus areas of the FAME scheme. This news becomes important from your prelims point of view, as a question can be asked with respect to FAME scheme. What does the government intends to achieve and under which particular ministry this particular scheme comes under? And in this respect, a question can be asked, what substantial push the government can provide to improve FAME scheme and in the faster adoption of e-vehicles in India? Does this become an important news from science and tech part of your syllabus? And also questions can be asked with respect to environmental concerns, as the pollution level of various cities including Delhi have been very bad. So how far changing to an all-fleet electric vehicle system will affect the environment of a particular city? Thus, in this respect as well, this news become important. With this, we come to an end to today's newspaper. Let's move on to the question for the day.